Szanowni Państwo, czas teraz na kolejną część festiwalu Sektor 3.0. Jak Państwo doskonale wiedzą, na festiwalu, naszym wydarzeniu mamy gości z Polski, jak i z zagranicy. W dzisiejszym kolejnym panelu będziemy rozmawiać o zaufaniu i pochodnych, ale będziemy też wspominać o narzędziach. Także już teraz pora, żebyśmy przestawili się na język angielski. And now we are switching to English, and I would like to welcome my guests, and they are Pernille Tranberg, an independent speaker and advisor in data democracy, data ethics, data understanding, and digital self-awareness, and also CEO for Open Knowledge Foundation, Renata Avila. Hello. First of all, I would like to give some background to the viewers because we are here because trust online and trust in digital services is important. Is it why you are here? Is it important to you, this component of digital life?
It's very, very important. It's without trust, the world is really getting horrible to be in digitally.
To me, it's very interesting because it is one of the issues that concerns me the most, and that's why it is so important to be here at Sector 3.0 because we are moving from trust to this kind of belief of faith. You have to believe whatever a technology company tells you about your devices, about the systems, about everything, because of the increased opacity of the industry and the complexity of the systems that we are navigating today. So, of course, it's extremely important, and I hope that we can unpack it together and learn from each other.
Sure. The first thing that popped into my mind when I was thinking about questions was if we should trust companies, big companies, with our data, with our knowledge, with everything. But I think that we are one step further, and we should ask ourselves, why do people still trust? Because there is something really valuable to put out there, the knowledge, the data, and people still do it. They do not really, I think, maybe care or know. So the question is a little bit different, I think. The first one, the big question, why do people still trust?
Is it me first?
Yeah,
I would say,
yeah, sorry, sure.
Yes. I don't think most people trust big tech today. I think they use it because it's convenient. They know it, their friends are there, and they're hooked on it. And they don't know the alternatives. So it's not a question of trust. It's a question of being addicted to it or used to it. And that's what we have to change. Because I don't think that in the end, we will have trust in these platforms.
Okay, maybe it's also a question of dependency, yeah, because we sometimes are so far in one or the other platform that we feel dependent on it. But Renata, what's your take on this issue? Why do people still trust?
Well, to me, it's very interesting to unpack what do we mean with people. And I guess that there's different generations, interacting at different levels. And one of the interesting things during the still ongoing pandemic is how people from very, very young ages, very savvy about technology, were mistrusting completely the deployment of surveillance technologies to track everybody. And we're very aware of the risks because they know, young people know how capable the technologies that we have in something as simple as a telephone is to track you, to know where you are, to know what you like, and so on. Then there was the middle, the middle-aged people. I think that they are the most more prone to trust because they have benefited, and I'm considering a part of this generation. We were born with typewriters, and then we had this revolution that make our life really easier. Like the younger generation, they were born with it. It is they mistrust as they mistrust authority, as they mistrust institutions, and so on. For our generation, is the mix of, oh, I cannot live with it. It makes such change in my life. And then you have the older generation, and that we, to our surprise, even in Europe, in the heart of Europe, it is not there's a big digital gap. And that generation, the level of trust allocated in technology is very low. Why? Because they witnessed dictatorships, they witnessed abuses of power, and they are very, very, very aware of what concentration of power in few hands means. And so they are very, very careful. I have seen it in countries like Germany, in my own country, Guatemala. If you have been subject to surveillance and control, you are in the past, and you have seen that at some point, it blurs, and what it is for one purpose becomes general purpose and becomes a tool of oppression, then you're more aware of this kind of deployment. So I would say like there is distributed levels of trust. And of course, one of the things that makes, in general, people to apparently trust technology is that it is very reliable. You wake up in the morning, your mail works. In the past, those who, like me, transited from decentralized to centralized technologies, sometimes your email wouldn't work because something was working badly at your home server, or because of a energy shortage. So that's, I think, what has changed. Like summarizing, distributed levels of trust depending on generations, and history matters still. There's still divides, and but reliability had helped tech companies.
Can I add one thing as well? Because I agree, of course. But we also have to remember, if you look back the last 12, 14 years, 15 years, looking at the way the technology companies framed themselves is really interesting, because they have their definition of, for example, privacy. Especially in the US, privacy is something against the evil state. So the private tech companies help you against the evil state. Whereas I believe in Europe, it's both state and big tech, big companies. We want privacy from both commercially and from state. But we have trusted, for example, US tech companies because they said, oh, we take care of your privacy, which ended up being, well, it's not taking care of our privacy. They are using our data to make money in the way they want to do it.
Yeah, sure. I think that's the most common myth, or maybe the most common lie on the internet, is clicking the "I have read the terms of privacy policy" when you are accepting some services. So that's something that we should work on. And thank you for saying really that there are differences in the trust, and that the times that we are living in and the moments that the tech appeared in our life, it's very significant to the way that we approach it. So it's very, it is, yeah, it's, I think it has broadened my horizon of thinking about this. I'm thinking about maybe some political acts that are supposed to pass, and they are supposed to give some smaller tech players some space to maybe find a place at the table. Let's put it like this. But is it really possible? Because the big companies have a head start. They have millions of users. They have the technology, so it's like reliable. Is it really a world for something new, for some maybe smaller but better services? Better meaning according to the trust issues. Maybe Renata first now. Thanks.
Yes, I will love to take that question first, because I'm the optimist, like I think that it is indeed possible. And I think that it is behavioral change. I think that we are seeing with the new generations an incredible commitment to ethics, to local communities, to the environment, and to social good in general. And I think that it is the people at the end what technologies are intending to serve, and we have seen transformations, for example, in consumption of clothes and food, and technology shouldn't be a difference. Consume local, in your local language, developed by developers that you can hold accountable if they make a huge mistake that is damaging people. And I think that going back to the local and going back to supporting the small and medium companies locally. I mean, for example, in Poland, you have a specific language, and you have among the most talented engineers in the world. Like, instead of, having all these wonderful women and men coding for Microsoft, you could, for instance, be developing your local industries and having your local robust systems. But the beauty of Europe is that you can also share those developments at small scale, and I think that we are like going back to downsize and serve better to people, and I think that a part of the service that these companies, competitive advantages that these companies could offer is strong commitments to human rights and to inclusion of women as 50% of the labor force of tech companies. Second, a very, very, very strong commitment to local languages and to serving the communities that they are supposed to serve better. And third, ethics, ethics and commitment to obey the law, basically. If you are expecting to have a service, hire a service, for example, for this video conference, and if something goes wrong, you have to sue someone somewhere in California, it seems so distant for me as a consumer to feel like, satisfied. I think that changing the ethics of consumption of technology, it will drive the demand for it. The demand is there. I think that we need just to sacrifice a little bit of comfort to have something that tastes better, like the local apple, instead of an apple coming from California. Technology that is made locally in Europe by European developers and respecting European human rights and global human rights as well. It will taste better and it will be more trusted by the users. The trust is something that you can see, that you can verify, and that you can advocate to change. And that's what local industries offer.
Thank you. Thank you. Pernille?
Yes, I agree very much that we're waiting for that trend among food that we buy local. We'll see that trend in tech as well. But we also really need both businesses, consumers, and governments in Europe need to be very active in this area to create a data democracy. And the trend which we are seeing, especially in Europe, but also in the US, is that new organizations are coming up where individuals can actually take control of their own data and gain new insights in their own data. And that is because of the new rules from Europe, GDPR, where you have a right to ask for your data and to have your data ported to your own iPhone, for example, or to another server. You can use that data in favor of yourself, but also in favor of science, for example. So we are seeing that trend already, that the control of data will have to move away from both state, as we see it in China, and also from big tech, as we see in the US and China with TikTok, right? The big commercial players have too much control. The main control of your data has to be with the individual. And this is where I think we will see a lot of new interesting services in Europe so we can buy local. I can give you some examples already now if you want to. We are already seeing alternative search engines which you can use. We are seeing alternative analytics tools for your website. We are seeing alternative cloud services coming up, all from Europe. And if we as individuals don't start using these, and also companies, then they won't grow. So even free services from the US or China grow when you use it. So you support them just by using them. So in that way, I really believe we all have a responsibility. Individuals, companies, organizations, NGOs, and governments, we together have a responsibility to create a data democracy.
Sure. Ethics is, I think, the word number one from this section of our conversation, of our interview. I think that people maybe not are lazy, but we get used to some extent, of course, to some of the software or the things that we use, and the pandemic may have even advanced it. Maybe we are not paying attention at all to what we are using. So I would like to ask you now for some alternatives. Where can we look for something, for maybe email, maybe some kind of social media, maybe some kind of Microsoft alternative? Do you have like a little roadmap for someone who wants to start digging, not to be this lazy, of course, but we put it in brackets. So maybe not being lazy, but trying to figure out something new, something to be more ethical, just like we said. So Pernille, maybe you can give us the first example.
We have a very good guide at dataethics.eu/tools. We have a total guide for alternative tools. And just to give you a couple of examples, I would never ever use Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp, because I know it's owned by Facebook and they're using that data. I would use Signal or Wire or even Telegram. I would not use a search engine like Google, which is used by 90% of people, because they store everything you search on. All details are kept in a detailed profile, but you can use Ecosia out of Germany, where you plant a tree. Also, you can use Startpage out of Holland, which is actually based on a Google search engine, but you are anonymized. Or you can use DuckDuckGo, an American search engine. They are all very good. So you can use an alternative browser. Sitting here, I had to use Chrome, but I would always, I never use that, but I would use Firefox, Safari, or Brave, for example.
Okay, thank you. I think that Firefox has a number of some tools that they are developing, like socially with people. Is that correct?
Firefox also, or Mozilla, who's behind Firefox, they have also a list of tools which you can use, and they benchmark them up against each other.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Renata?
Yeah, Philip, I wanted to add a reflection, choice sometimes, and this is very important to remember, is a privilege of few. Okay. And sometimes, it is very interesting, because sometimes, it is beyond your choice. You have an actor that is more powerful, or you have limitations on affordability, and that's probably not the case of everybody in Europe, but the poorest sectors in Europe often, can only afford. I mean, gladly, Europe is protected by net neutrality, but it is not clear with app neutrality still. So sometimes the poor end up having no choice but to use, these very monopolistic options. And we are seeing something even more dangerous, and is the imposition on the public school system of big tech applications. So you have the children on Google apps that are very affordable for the school that probably suffer from cuts on their local budgets. You have entire public administrations in the poorest towns in Europe running all their infrastructure on Silicon Valley's clouds. And that's just the beginning of the problem. If you look at the most vulnerable, if you look at the most defunded institutions, they have to rely, to save archives, to save, to save the history, the legacy of Europe. You see many museums and archives and libraries relying on these big tech giants. And so the problem is that sometimes you cannot afford the option, because sometimes, for example, in the case of someone with a very limited data plan, sometimes, like downloading Signal and connecting to Signal every time would not be efficient for your economic model. So I believe that it is important. Individual choices are important, but taking care of the most vulnerable and understanding the difficulties of shifting and pushing institutions to do this, massive shift that will, have horizontal effects. It is also a very, very, very good strategy. So I think that the other thing that we need to be looking forward is this, hopefully that will pass this interoperability standard at the European level that will enable us not to have to have 20 messaging apps installed in our phone, but have one of our choice that matches our principles, our values, our ethics, that can talk to the other apps as email does. That's really the hope. But always, we need to understand and to be very, very, very sensible about, especially, the audience here probably today is highly educated, very privileged, and very generous. So we just need to look around us and see and inform the others better and help others that are struggling on understanding why they are sticking to these tools and why they think that they don't have choice.
I have to add something to Renata, because you're so right. But I also have to say that in a very rich country like Denmark, Google is now sitting on half of the education sector in the primary school. And yes, it's a disaster. We could afford to do something else like they do in France or Germany, but we've chosen Google. So that's how we're bringing up our kids, as small Google soldiers, which, I understand why you're doing this. Me too.
Right, but there's still hope for change, I guess. In Sector 3.0, we have a little startup program for the NGOs that want to do something different, something that was not done before, or that they want to do it their way. So right now, I would like to ask you for maybe a recipe or some ingredients to creating a good, I don't know, let's say a solution, an app, whatever, creating something good that takes care of the comfort of the one that is creating it and also of the comfort of the user. I mean, something popped into my head that the key factor may be the communication between someone creating and someone using, but I don't know if it is the answer. Pernille, maybe?
Well, if you think about privacy and ethics from the very beginning, when you start your innovation process, then it's much cheaper and easier to kind of bake it into the product and service from the beginning. That's what I would do, at least. If you're an NGO today and you are dependent on Facebook or Google and all the others, I would start doing this. I would start building up my own audience, probably via my own website. I would regard my own website as my headquarters. And then I would use social media just for marketing and have people come to my website. I would have a newsletter. I would do anything I could to be in direct contact with my own users. Because as we see today, a lot of organizations are dependent on Facebook. And the kids and the young people have left Facebook. Now they're on TikTok. So now you have to move over there. So it's much better to have your own headquarters where you are in control of everything, and then use social media as your marketing place. Don't embed yourself in social media and become too dependent on it. That's what's really scary, because it's also pretty cheap at the beginning to do advertising and collect money. But suddenly when they get a hook on everybody, it's much more expensive. So think about that. You need to be in control. the last thing is that you also have to not share sensible data about your users with these big platforms. And today we see a lot of organizations dealing with cancer or patient rights or sensitive topics. They would employ third-party cookies and gossip to Google, Facebook, and the thousands of other companies that this person has an interest in cancer, for example. That's a really bad thing. Most people don't understand that their data, whenever they enter a website about cancer, that their data will be shared with thousands of advertising companies. They should stop that. That's ethics. Even though it might be legal, it's not ethical. So there are a lot of things organizations can do. They shouldn't be worried that it takes time. We have to think long-sighted and then start building your own community, your own control with your own customers.
Thank you. Renata?
Yes, my first advice as a head of an NGO, is do not measure yourself with the metrics of the enemy, basically. Do not measure your impact by the number of likes, by the number of views, by the number of clicks. That's not measuring your community. That's not measuring your impact. And if a donor suggests that, tell them that you are rejecting this industry of clicktivism, basically. What makes your community stronger is the time and effort that you put to cultivate it. And it doesn't need to be in the mainstream platforms. It might take time, but now that the pandemic is passing, we will have the time to see each other again. Sometimes, maybe your mission will be faster and will be louder and will be stronger with, 50 members of your community that meet face to face every weekend. And you can do it in a decentralized scale. What we do at Open Knowledge Foundation is to cultivate in decentralized platforms our communities, and we meet every Friday for some, and we have programs like fellows that go and kind of evangelize in our mission to open information and data globally. And we do different actions instead of allocating our money and our time and being obsessed by the number of views and likes. We go back to our mission and we try to find the right people for that. We don't call them users, like in our case, they're partners or community members. And the importance of that is I think that it is precisely what we are talking here about trust. The trust that you can develop in a more intimate community that grows organically, that. Even if your Facebook page is shut down or your Twitter account is disconnected, you don't lose your community by losing that. I mean, I have heard so many times recently, oh, my Facebook account is canceled, I lost my community. Imagine how vulnerable it is to rely on a company that will never listen to you because you're such a small actor to host your entire community. Take care of your people, bring them to a safe place, and grow in this way. I think there is a lot of fun. You can still use the tools, of course. You can, but strategically, do not hire a dedicated person to grow the business of Silicon Valley, as many NGOs don't.
Sure.
And I will say like that. The other thing is develop data literacy among your community. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're doing environmental issues or if you're doing women issues, data will be central into the future to shape better your route from data to knowledge and understanding to promoting change. So to be factual.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. So I guess that NGOs should probably downscale and maybe go out to the real world. But I think that there is also some amount of fear amongst the NGOs, and probably most of them are on Facebook, for example, because everyone is, and they consider being on Facebook with being successful or being out there. And I think that maybe it's not the case in what you were saying, Renata, right?
Right. We need different metrics and different rankings by NGOs. And for example, the efforts that Sector 3.0 is doing, like it might lead us to different rankings. Who gets to speak at this conference, who gets an award for the good work done, who gets more support by specific communities. I think that we really need to get out of the impressions and clicks logic as soon as possible.
Sure. Pernille, do you think that NGOs
it's
should be afraid of using other platforms, or they maybe should stick to the path that is cleared already?
They should use them strategically, I believe. Today, many use them, are embedded with them, and too dependent on them. So you don't have to get out of Facebook immediately, but you have to think in the long term how you can build your own community digitally also. But generally, I also, of course, agree totally with Renata that following big tech's measurement of success is bad. You should find your own success parameters and measure your own success, because clicks is nothing. It's a measurement for them to make money, but not for the NGO.
Sure, but we have also some dark sides, obviously, but we also have some light sides and upsides. I'm getting at Ukraine. Russia invaded Ukraine, but the social media helped in many ways, connecting people that are searching for a house, for some crowdfunding activities. So I guess that there is also some good in the outreach that these big media has.
Of course, I mean, they developed or they invented a new way of getting together in a network, and that's brilliant. That's amazing. The problem is that some of them are so commercial that they are, in a way, destroying the democracy. And there's so many fake news out there but of course, like in every other situation in life, there are good sides and bad sides. And in 2011, we talked about the Arab Spring Revolution, and we had social media changing everything. So, and that's still the case. They broke the monopoly of traditional media. So everybody suddenly were out there, and that's absolutely amazing. And fortunately, we have different social media today we can choose between, and we'll see even more in the future. That will continue. It's a business model behind the social media, which is interesting to look at. And
okay.
Actually, I would like to add. Sorry, Phil.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yes, I would like to comment on this, because it is a very particular situation, because mainstream media, Western mainstream media, especially English-speaking mainstream media, gave it was almost 24/7 coverage about the conflict. So we cannot ignore, the combination of the two powers, We cannot ignore the combination of the two powers. We cannot ignore political interest in between. And while it led to amazing results in this particular situation, I have seen my friends in Palestine, for example, and I have seen my friends, struggling for environmental issues in Brazil, using all trying, to scream for help on social media. And it never, even if there's catastrophes that are heartbreaking and very urgent, even the lungs of the planet at risk and so on, it doesn't have the same effect if there's not a combination and really political will from the companies to boost the visibility of some circumstances. And sadly, that's another issue related to trust, because of course it makes wonder all the people trying to trying to use them for similar purposes. Why their efforts and their legitimate cry for help is invisible, while others are mainstream. So, and of course we cannot know because the algorithms are not visible to us, and we cannot know the decisions of, newsrooms and in combination with social media companies to give a lot of visibility to some situations and very little visibility to some equally tragic situations. So I guess that there's a lot of things to examine, and that's yet another reason why it is better to rely, on a trusted network, even just an email, a mailing list, a trusted network of organizations that do not get, into these complicated situations. And the other thing is that it doesn't last, the visibility and the support do not last. And we saw it with the COVID crisis, suddenly it's gone while it is still ongoing, so I really rely on well-connected international communities that trust each other and know each other and have reliable ways to communicate and convey legitimate messages using digital means, but digital means controlled by them, not by Silicon Valley.
Sure. We really are running out of time, so I would like to throw out one more question, open question, but I would like the answers to be really compact. I would like to ask you about the brick, the foundation for building trust. What is it? Meaning a digital world or in a physical world, what are the key ingredients of building trust? Renata, maybe.
I can trust what I can see, what I can verify, and what I can understand. And what if I see something bad going on, I can fix or advocate for it to be fixed, and I know who to ask that for, and it works. That would be very quick.
All right, thank you. That's the quote for your part of this. And Pernille?
Yeah, I would add on to that as of course, transparency, true transparency. Whatever you do, you are open and honest and explain what you are doing. If you do that, you will have trust.
All right. Thank you very much. I think that we raised really important issues, and we can take it from here with promoting some new alternatives for tools to building new communities online and communities in the real world. There are a few very important things like ethics. This is the main principle that I think I heard from from what you were saying. So I guess that this is our little brick in the foundation for building trust. It's just these information and these mindsets that we can give. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you
for having us.
Thank you so much. Szanowni Państwo, w ten sposób kończymy kolejną część festiwalu Sektor 3.0, festiwalu, który nadal trwa. Także w tym momencie bardzo dziękujemy naszym prelegentkom. Zachęcamy do klikania w linki, które z pewnością będą dla Państwa dostępne, do sprawdzania nowych wersji, czy też w ogóle nowych mediów, nowych aplikacji, o których tutaj Państwo usłyszeli. Bardzo gorąco dziękujemy. Do zobaczenia, do usłyszenia.